right, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to get started in a minute. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining this call. We're going to get started as soon as we have a couple more folks join. All right, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation today. Really excited for the conversation we're going to have with some people who are really leading the charge in driving tangible innovation in government. So the topic of today's discussion is public sector transformation faster than an F-15, and the focus of that really is to talk about some of the incredible work that's being done by the other folks on this call at the Air Force as a case study, where there are a lot of lessons learned on how to effectively leverage technology to drive meaningful impact with speed and at scale. And so we'll be hearing from Adam Wilson, the CEO of Trifacta, Eileen Vidreen, the Chief Data Officer of the Air Force, and Lauren Knaussenberger, the Deputy CIO of the Air Force. And everyone on this call has really driven incredible results from their respective organizations. And I think a lot of us are going to have a lot to learn from their leadership. I know I've been lucky to see a lot of the great work that they've done as a partner to them from my role at DCode. And so after the panelists introduce themselves, we'll have a fireside chat conversation between Adam, Lauren, and Eileen. We're going to take questions at the end. So please feel free to drop them in the chat as we go along. We'll try to get to as many as we can at the end of the presentation. To kick things off, my name is Nate Ashton. I'm Managing Director at DCode, where for the past 3 years, I've been leading our efforts to help cutting edge technologies solve problems within government. And so as part of that, I've managed a dozen or so accelerator programs where we scout some of the best emerging tech in areas like AI, cybersecurity, DevOps, and more, and help bring them into the government space, while also working with government and industry partners to help them adopt those technologies. And so AI data analytics, what we're talking about today, is something we focused on heavily every year at DCode because there's just so much innovation going on in the private sector in this field, with huge opportunities to apply that tech to the broad range of big data problems we see across government. So I've gotten to see and work with quite a few impressive startups over the years, and I try to pretend I don't pick favorites, but Trifacta is absolutely one of them. In the couple of years since we started working with them, they've done some pretty incredible things at a broad range of agencies, everything from helping the CDC do more effective health data analysis to enabling big audits across pretty complex systems. So I'm excited to hear more about the story today, just one of many examples of the power that modern data tools can have on improving government. And then on the government side, right, we've worked a lot with government leaders to help them implement tech at all levels of their organization. And I can say without hesitation that Eileen and Lauren have moved mountains within their organization and accomplished things that really we didn't think would be possible 3 years ago, right? If you had asked, can we do X, Y, and Z in 6 months, a year? So for the government folks in the audience, a lot of lessons learned to be had. Definitely pay attention, ask some questions. And with that, I'll hand it over to the panelists to introduce themselves briefly. So Adam, over to you.
Great, thanks Nate, really appreciate the kind introduction. Thrilled to be here today speaking with two of my favorites and hearing their stories. But my name is Adam Wilson, I'm the CEO of Trifacta and have been with the company for over 6 years now. Our mission is really to help the people who know the data best do the work when it comes to data integration, data transformation, data cleansing. We're really democratizing the data engineering piece of the puzzle, and it's been our distinct pleasure, to work with the U.S. Air Force, on their journey to really modernize and to transform how they work with data. So it's a real pleasure to be here. Nate, I think you're on mute.
Over to you, Eileen.
Hello, my name is Eileen Vidreen, and I have the honor to serve as the Chief Data Officer in the Department of the Air Force. My team is I like to say, a startup in a very mature organization, and we've been really trying to really empower airmen across the enterprise to really use data to drive data and insight, what I call fuel innovation with data.
I'll wrap it up. I'm Lauren Knaussenberger, the Air Force CIO, and just recently jumped into this seat from being the Air Force Chief Transformation Officer. which was, I think, a surprise to me and everyone when I jumped into the Air Force quite by accident about 3 years ago. And it has been the most rewarding thing I've ever done. I recommend it to everyone to get your time in for government service. And working with folks like Eileen on the inside and partners like Adam and Nate has just made it even more incredible, the way that we're working all of these things and moving these mountains together. So glad to be here today to talk to all of these great people.
Thanks. All right, so with that, I'll hand over to Adam to facilitate conversation with Eileen and Lauren on the work that they've done. We've got a couple slides as well with some details on the Vault program that I know we'll get into, so I'll pull those up as soon as that comes into the discussion. But Adam, over to you.
Awesome, great. Well, thanks, Nate, and again, Eileen and Lauren, thanks for being here today. Super exciting topic, and I know a lot of things that are going on, a lot of change that's occurring, a lot of progress that's being made. But let's kick it off by just talking a little bit about priorities. I can imagine for both of you, coming in and really trying to affect this change program, has been both thrilling, but also a ton of work. And a lot of it starts with, where do you put focus and emphasis from the beginning? So I guess, Eileen, I'd love to hear from you a little bit on, how you're thinking about key priorities for the U.S. Air Force and everything from culture to technology to process, how all that really comes together.
Well, Adam, I appreciate the opportunity, and I have to begin by saying that my team would not be where it is today without the partnership of Lauren and her team, because it really is us working collaboratively across portfolios to really drive results. And being a startup in a really mature organization, it is truly about showing value. So that was the first task that I asked my team, was really, how can we show value very quickly? What I say, available, accurate, and actionable data. And one of the first places we did was we actually reached out to SAFCN and Lauren's transformation team in her previous role to see how we could really drive a data platform at the enterprise level as quickly as possible to really bring new capabilities and, what I would say, get to yes. It's really easy for our people to say, no, you can't do that. So it was really changing the culture to say, how do we get to yes? How do we get to yes fast? And there were many great things that were happening, but many times it got to a point where somebody said no. And so flipping the construct to really say, how can we get to yes as quickly and as efficiently as possible? That culture change piece is really where we've been investing, because that is the framework that drives velocity across the enterprise moving forward. Lauren, what are you thinking in terms of how you're new in your role? How are you looking at your priorities, and how can my team help you?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So first of all, I'll say overall, my job is to enable decision advantage and speed thousands of proverbial kill chains. And I'm saying proverbial kill chains because sometimes in the military it is about firepower, but a lot of times it's about doing business. It's about getting data to people that need the data right now to make a decision at all levels. So that's kind of the overall what we're doing. I'll tell you my 4 pillars. One, we got to build the rock solid digital foundation so that when everyone is trying to get access to that data, it's working on a 21st century network, zero trust principles, that they're not waiting for the spinning donut. And that platform is, in my opinion, the foundation of our future competitive advantage as a military, because we've done amazing work up the stack, with folks like Eileen. We have amazing AI capabilities in the cloud. Now I have to make sure that everyone can connect to that bespoke capability in the cloud. Second, user experience. We've done some really great stuff with measuring our user experience and using all of that data to drive where we are investing. Because at the end of the day, I can build capabilities all day long. If it doesn't make a difference to an airman or a space professional or a commander, it really doesn't matter. The third thing is enabling digital talent. So making sure that all of these awesome people, as we're equipping them with the tools and data that they need to do their job and the network that they need to do their job, that we're continuing to educate them and make sure that they can use that data in really awesome ways, that they know how to do things like wrangle their data in partnership with Trifacta, that they know how to use it to enable DevSecOps and to push new capabilities to the warfighter, and that those warfighters know how to apply technology to their missions. And then finally, we are ruthlessly attacking manual process. We are going after redundant IT and really just buying down technical debt so that we can make way for all the new stuff that we have to do. So those are my top four. And I mean, data is right in the middle of all of that stuff. We're using data to drive our spend. We're using data to hit airman user experience. And at the end of the day, everything that I do is about getting data to the people who need it. So, so Eileen's a huge partner in all of this.
Fantastic. Well, you know, super exciting set of initiatives. And I know from having spent time with both of you that the entire organization is really energized around what you're up to and the progress that's being made in such a short period of time as we, you know, get to yes and find ways to progress, you know, at rates that, you know, I think are really unheard of, you know, in some of these circles. So congratulations to both of you. I know a central component to all of this has been Vault. And Eileen, I was hoping maybe you could talk a little bit about Vault from those who are less familiar and how that has been a key enabler of the mission.
Absolutely. Vault stands, I should pivot by saying, the DoD data strategy was recently released, and they have some core principles, and they use a acronym VAULT IS, and it stands for visible, accessible, understandable, linked, trustworthy, interoperable, and secure. I know it's a lot, but they're really key tenets that have to happen. And in the Department of the Air Force, prior to the DoD data strategy, we were really focusing around the VAULT principles. And we partnered with Lauren's team to really say, how can we get capability out there quickly? And so we built what we call the Vault Data Platform using Agile DevOps and really going from zero to an IL4 cloud instantiation with open source tools in under 100 days. And without the rapid ETO process and having great partners, that absolutely wouldn't have been possible. And then using Agile development, we've continued to mature out that platform. So so we started with zero, and today we're a cross-domain multi-tenancy solution that goes up to impact level 6 and in the cloud with a combination of open source and commercial tools. And many of those commercial tools came from our air and space professionals out in the field that said, I need this capability today. And so I would also say that another critical piece to that was bringing in our acquisition partners so that we could really be working with our security experts to get things approved. And our most recent tool capabilities on our Vault platform, literally, we got the security piece done before the contract was actually signed to bring the tool on board. And I think that is a game changer for everybody because we can start to show value in using the tools immediately. So I'll use Trifacta as an example. Trifacta, we actually completed a contract very late on a Friday evening, and people came to work on Monday morning with that capability on the platform at up to impact level 5. And just a few weeks later, we were at impact level 6. And what we're trying to do is make sure that we can actually do as much development and work in an unclassified environment as possible, and then pivot into more sensitive environments where we can. This slide is just a snapshot of many of the capabilities that we have today, and I would say that it's maturing every single day. And so it's really about us working together as a big E enterprise to get to yes. And we have to give our air and space professionals state-of-the-art tools as quickly as possible. And there are two key components that our CIO team have brought to us. One is the rapid ATO process, but the other piece that I think sometimes gets missed in the conversation is the reciprocity agreement that allows tools that have been approved to be at a certain impact level on one to really be used across what I would call the big E enterprise perspective. And that truly is a game changer, because once it's approved, it could be on any network at that classification level. And it's really a smart way to do business, because it allows us to give our air and space professionals tools today, because they have to solve their now problems, not their problems in the future, but right now, today. And we're constantly getting injects from the field for new Python or R libraries, new capabilities. I like to say that our Vault platform we built pre-COVID, but our platform, both in customer base as well as utilization, has grown. Our utilization has grown tenfold since we pivoted to what I call alternate work environments. So having the ability to connect to the cloud securely in a trustworthy environment, regardless of where you are, really has helped us keep the mission moving forward. And when people ask about return to work, and I think Lauren will tell you, we haven't left. We've been going faster than we've ever gone before, because having this capability has enabled us to have, capability regardless of where you are. So I think it's pretty exciting.
That's great. That's great. Well, and Eileen, I think one of the things that would be also helpful to make some of this capability more concrete is maybe just a couple of examples. I know on the prior slide, there were a few use cases that were indicated. Is there one or two that kind of come to mind that you think are really illustrative of the capability that's been unleashed here?
I think that the one that I always point to was one of our very first use cases with the installation management commanders across the Department of the Air Force. They wanted a visualization capability to inform their investments across the installations. The example I always use is many of us have sometime in our careers needed access to amazing childcare facilities. And the Department of Defense and the Department of the Air Force have great childcare facilities when you get access to them. Using the power of data, they've been able, in using our airmen's, DEER's information, they've been able to know this is going to be, they can project the potential daycare needs in a region before the airman or space professional PCSs into the region. And so that has allowed those installation commanders to make the right investments. Do I need to retrain? Do I need to reconfigure my classroom configurations? Do I need to hire more people? And that has reduced the wait times and really be able to maximize facility utilization. So I think that is something that it's a problem set, but I think a lot of us can relate to it, because sometime in our career, we've known somebody that have had that. And in order to really be really present, you need to make sure that your family's taken care of. And being able to plan for that in advance and just shrink that wait time, I think is really critical. So it's a very, I would say, a simple, unclassified example, but it's meaningful to our air and space professionals, because they know that they can get amazing access as quickly as it is absolutely possible. And so I think that is one. Another one that I like to point to is the Air Education Training Command has a very rich pilot, which they call Pilot Training Next. And using Pilot Training Next, they've been able to really use data to inform how they're training and maximizing the training path for our pilots in the Air Force. With the use of simulators and the data coming off the simulators, they've been able to make sure that every hands-on hour in the cockpit training is absolutely maximized, because the simulation data has allowed them to make sure that they're ready for that training opportunity. And it has really allowed our trainers to really maximize and really push the training from the original state to really a forward-leaning digitized component. And I think the path for that has been so successful. I think that we will see more simulation involved in future training moving forward because of that actionable data coming out of the simulators.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, those are great examples. And I know it's fun to see all of the new ideas and really even the new data that people are bringing to the platform to get some of those advantages that you just described. I think, Lauren, for you, obviously we began our journey together, several years ago when you were doing a lot of technology scouting and really starting to think through this transformation more broadly. I guess I'd be curious, what you see as some of the key use cases as well that you think Air Force is going to be able to attack, with some of the new capability that is being brought online. Lauren, looks like you're on mute.
Yep. I turned it off to answer a crazy question about acronyms.
Oh, there you go.
Where, like, boy, did we play acronym bingo. So, Vladimir, hopefully I gave you a good answer to that. I'll start with where I think we do pretty well, and then I'll share with, kind of the next step. But on the Intel side, we've known that data is power for a really, really long time. And so if you look at kind of the Intel startups, so to speak, across the Intel being intelligence, across the intelligence community, across the military, we do pretty well, today with just parsing out what data we need and doing like really amazing things with it and using AI. On just about everything else, we're just now figuring out that it's a strategic asset, like the way that a business would. And so there are some things where we can collect new data today and do awesome things with it through modern tools. So we kind of like skip the middle part, things like user experience. We've just figured out that user experience is really important, so the way that we're collecting that data, we can just automatically use it. But when it comes to some other things like just looking at like retention of airmen, for instance, like anything to do with personnel or anything to do with our medical data, our logistics data, getting to things like just-in-time inventory, our systems, and boy, are they disparate, like pick a topic, there's going to be at least 100 systems for it. And a lot of them are pretty old. And even the newer things, it's like you just have a subset of data that's probably copied somewhere else. Maybe you can get access to it, maybe you can't. And so when we're doing things with Vault and with folks like Trifacta, really it's about pulling data from so many different sources, making sure that we're making sense of it, that we're avoiding the duplication, that we're understanding how the data sets fit together, to come up with the answers to questions that we've never even thought about asking before. And one of the early pieces I know that Eileen worked was on readiness. Just how many of our people are ready to go fight? Whether that's pilots, whether that's our military officer enlisted mostly, but also our civilians. On the military side, we have more regulations that kind of indicate, are you ready? Did you pass your PT? Did you do your pilot training, for that class of aircraft? And that's something that has been ridiculously manual. And really, just almost everything that we've done in the past has been just crazy manual. People just like killing themselves through hard work to get to answers, where everything that we're doing now is relying on automation and data to focus what we're doing and to just make better decisions and drive better policy, drive better career paths for our airmen through data. And actually, I talked earlier about making sure that people have the knowledge that they need to drive this future digital transformation with us. And so we've launched Digital U, and that's another piece of key data. What are people's assessment scores in these modern technologies? How much time are people spending on learning? How does that correlate to kind of their performance, like I guess, either on the leaderboards or in the way that they're able to apply that technology to the mission sets that are really critical. So I guess the short answer to the second part of that is everything. It helps with everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Well,
Adam,
and yeah, go
I'd
ahead.
just like to add that sometime one of the places when we talk about readiness is if I have one more dollar to invest, where does it go? And sometimes it's not obvious. So when you look at the data, you can actually see where you can maximize the return on investment. And
Yeah.
so it's not always the obvious choice. So having that data to drive that insight as quickly as possible is game changing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the other thing that I've always marveled at is the scale that you have to think about and contemplate. And I know some of these initiatives, start in small ways and have impact and grow from there. But there's always an eye toward, how does this really work for a team or a mission that is highly distributed, that is going to impact thousands and thousands of people. So can you say a few words about how you see this thing growing up in terms of scale and the type of velocity that you're trying to create, in working with data, by democratizing more and more of this work?
Well, I'll just paint a picture of the magnitude of the scale for a minute before Eileen, gets to talk about the fun stuff. But
Yeah.
just for the people that are listening, name me a Fortune 2 company, with global operations, like 1 million people worldwide, that is still in business, okay, that has a crazy mix of billions of dollars worth of falling apart legacy hardware and nothing that talks to each other. So it's twofold. It's not just the magnitude of the scale, it's the magnitude of the tech debt. And most of the other guys that are like us would have already gone out of business big time before now with the magnitude of the systems that Eileen has to connect and pull data from. So Eileen, how are we going fast?
Well, I think the first thing is embracing agile development so that, you do something that, what I say, we carve it into small pieces, we use agile development, and then if it works, you scale it out. If it doesn't work, you can go back quickly and re-vector or even change it from its entirety. That's one of the great examples of why we do use cases. So one of the things that we have done is we actually stood up a small lab based on Andrews Air Force Base, and we put liaisons out in the field in what I call centers of gravity to really be like a boots on the ground program to really be embedded with the mission out in the field. I can't give every major command a team of individuals, but what we can do is put strategically placed representatives out in the field that literally give direct line access into our office so that we can be their change champion from the beginning to drive culture, not just grassroots, but really from the top down, so that we're really pushing that change component. And when you get something that is really part of the true solution, you scale and you scale fast. And I think that's what has really been exciting about not just the Vault initiative, but many of the use cases that we've worked over the last 2 years. We started with just a handful of use cases. We've wrapped about a couple dozen, but any given time we have about 24 use cases going on. And that's in addition to the work that's being done in the major commands and field activities out there. And in order to make that happen, sometimes you need that change champion at the top, and having trusted partners like Lauren is critical in making that happen. If somebody says, I need your help with this reciprocity agreement, I have I call somebody on our team, it is fixed. And I think that is, they haven't had that lever to push as quickly before. And that helps us scale quickly, but there's so much work to be done. So it's, the more you do, the more you want to do.
Right.
So it's really working super smart, maximizing every dollar that you have so that you can really shape and transform moving forward.
Yeah. Well, and when you talk about that work to be done, What role do you see Trifacta playing in all this? You know, what challenges are we helping Vault specifically, but Air Force broadly address?
Well, for my team, people talk about AI and machine learning, and I'm all in. But in order to do AI and machine learning at the speed of mission, you have to have great volumes of data. We have that. Great volumes of high quality data. We have to get, I'm not saying that we don't have great data. We need to really push that envelope, and Trifecta is part of that solution. And I would say our air and space professionals are the other critical link moving forward. So next, after the first of the year, we're actually going to have our next datathon, which is an opportunity to really use the power of those air and space professionals across our entire enterprise to really push that forward. Right now, I don't have a cool name for it yet. I call it the Cleanathon Datathon. But it's really about how do we do data prep and really at the speed of mission moving forward. And the way to do that is great tools like Trifacta and great air and space professionals, and merging them together to really maximize return on investment.
That's great. That's great. Well, we're always talking about these themes around, you know, the idea that if your data quality is bad, your analytics are probably worthless. And I think it's created a burning platform for people to really go after solving some of their data challenges. And especially if you think about artificial intelligence and automation, you know, we don't want to be in a position where we're automating bad decisions faster based on bad data, especially in missions where there's life and death implications. So, you know, that's right at the heart of the problems that we're trying to address. So, Lauren, any thoughts from you on this in terms of, I guess, the impact that we're having? I know that, as I mentioned previously, you know, you were very early in helping to connect the dots with Trifacta and the Air Force. So, I guess what did you see, you know, early on that sort of has allowed us to get to this point in terms of the impact that we're having?
So I will share that you, Adam, personally were a big part of that value proposition for me. I remember the first time we met, we were having a lot of kind of philosophical battles within the DoD, and you just kind of laid it out there. You're like, you know, canonically declaring any of this on high is just cray cray. You know, you pretty much just put it out there in like such simple language. And you have been a really great partner since then, not just in providing tools, but in just providing really great, very direct thoughts to convey where the data community is going, you know, from the middle of the valley. And I mean, you guys, you know, your business is to stay ahead of data trends. And so it's been really helpful to have you guys as a partner to kind of keep us up to date as well, you know, as we try to solve lots of today's and tomorrow's problems, while also having to spend so much time in, you know, last decade's problems too. So you guys have been very helpful, and yeah, we have no shortage of data to clean. I'm sure that, you know, you guys looked at us and you were like, wow, I've never seen, you know, millions of lines from databases that haven't had data validation for like 20 years. This is an amazing gold mine to, you know, use our tool on. So, you know, I think we've had some fun together.
Yeah, no, and it is again remarkable. Just again, the problems you're solving at scale. I think when I step back and think about kind of DoD broadly and Air Force as well, it's like you're talking about the largest retailer on the planet, the largest financial services on the institution on the planet, the largest logistics company on the planet. Just largest manufacturing. I mean, it's just, you go down the line, and you know, it is a unique set of challenges, but also a unique opportunity, because the kind of data sets that you're able to curate, you know, are unmatched, and the impact that can have is, you know, is really, you know, quite impressive. So it's fun to get involved in this and to see a lot of the projects and the use cases come out the other side, and the impact that it's having on the programs and the missions. So thank you for that opportunity. So, we kind of went in this particular instance from idea to full platform, kind of in like 100 days, which again is incredible execution. You alluded a little bit to this, Eileen, in terms of agile methodology and the approach that you were taking to try to put points on the board very early and to get to yes, quickly. I would just be curious, as you sort of went through that process in the first 100 days, were there any other kind of key lessons learned that really jumped out at you, that other people who are listening today could benefit from when it comes to starting their own modernization initiatives and having to contend with some of the same legacy process, legacy thinking, perhaps a technology history museum of different capabilities and components that they're maintaining, and sort of how do you go after it? So,
well, I absolutely go back to building your partnerships early. Setting up that core foundational partnership with the CIO shop was critical, but also setting up that core foundation with the acquisition community were two things that I think really have helped us go faster than norm. And I think those pieces really, because it's about getting through the security wickets as quickly as possible and having your acquisition team actually set you up for success, making sure that specific clauses are available. The other piece is look at what you have, look at what you need. And if you're looking at what you need, that's going to actually drive you to picking the right solution that rather than actually picking a tool. And so if you're looking at what the outcomes need to be as quickly as possible. And the other piece that I ask senior leaders today is, who are your data customers? Because if we look at the history of how we've done stuff, we've built systems that support your functional community per se, and actually pivoting it to say, how do you actually not just support your mission set, but actually support your customer base. In business, you would always think, who are your customers and how do you meet their needs? But having that conversation up front was not necessarily the norm, because it's like, I'm building a system to answer my questions, but when you look at the readiness field, readiness needs everybody's data. It's not just one area. If I look at the budgeting component, the financial management community, they need key data sets. The other piece that I also think, as we've done our use cases, is you must keep your functional experts involved in the process. It's not just about the data and making sure the architecture, your data engineers and your data scientists have it correct, but it's also making sure that you don't lose that mission context when you actually look at the data. So I would say that pre-COVID, I sent my data scientists, the geeks, to the missions. They loved it. They loved to see because they could see how they could add value immediately, because it's a diversity of thought component. They can take a problem set and just think a little bit differently and immediately bring value. But the functional experts do the same thing to the data science community. So it's really those partnerships, you have to invest and cultivate it, just like we're cultivating data.
Yeah, well, and for us, that's a lot of down to this idea of truly trying to move to self-service, and because context, as you said, is so important, and you want to get to a point where people can see for themselves and help themselves. And the nice part is that, especially when you're contending with an explosion of data diversity, it's not like every data set's a new data set. Odds are someone has seen something like it before, and you can learn from the data, and you can learn from how the users interact with the data in order to speed the process up for taking it from raw to refined. And I think that's been one of the hallmarks of the success we've had, not just with Air Force but with other accounts, is that we've really tried to think about, again, empowering the people who know the data best to do the work, because they bring context and they're able to, to get eyes on data very early in a process and do a lot of the structuring, the shaping, the cleansing, a lot of the interactive discovery on their own, which then leads to, better outcomes. So they're not spending, writing a specification and then waiting 6 months for a table to get added to a data warehouse, so that once they see the data, they can say, well, gee, now that I see the data, that's not really what I wanted. Or now that I see the data, my questions have changed. They really want to break down that impedance mismatch that exists between the number of people out there that are being told to be more data driven, and often the very small group of people who are, technically proficient at, provisioning it for them. And can we somehow change this up so that people, you can sort of get, more people collaborating with that data much earlier in the process, and in essence, kind of creating data products that will really drive the organization forward. So, I guess thinking or piggybacking on that a little bit, Lauren, obviously in your new role, and congratulations, very exciting, very well deserved. I guess how do you see things like cloud and some of these approaches, really changing, the CIO's office when it comes to, how you're leveraging the ecosystem to forward the agenda that Eileen described?
So, I mean, really the whole world has changed. I think we all know it. A lot of folks have been able to just jump to the future, and we're trying to do that where we can, but also kind of pulling our legacy along until we can kind of jump to new systems. So, I mean, the cloud has been game changing for us, the way it has been game changing for probably every business. Just elastic compute, so much easier access to all of the data that we need that's already been migrated to the cloud. Just better tools in general. It has enabled a lot, and really, we can't move our applications to the cloud fast enough, and we can't get our network, up to speed fast enough. So yes, paradigm shift. I think we're leading the department in cloud operations, and that we have 750,000 people that are doing most of their daily business in the cloud every day, as well as a good majority of our business systems in the cloud, and even some of our weapon systems, at least in cloud architecture, even though we're doing more of an on-prem cloud model for some of those. But it has been game changing, and the data side, of course, follows the security piece. It makes it so much easier too. Does that get at what you're hoping for, Adam?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of individuals and organizations are we're seeing this big shift to cloud that's happening everywhere, and I think that it started with applications, but now you're starting to see analytics come to the fore, and a lot of the more traditional data work that had maybe stubbornly resided, on-prem for long periods of time is now making the shift. And when they hear about, large organizations like Air Force that obviously have, huge requirements around data residency and data security, making that change and being part of that transformation, I think it's, certainly inspiring and eye-opening for those organizations to say, hey, if they can do it, why can't we? And so it's great to hear the progress there.
Well, and I'll share too, this is some of the most boring things that we've done have been the most game changing.
Yeah.
So during COVID, we got everyone on Teams. We're collaborating across the entire DoD. Most people knew that was necessary, but we've finally gotten everyone to collaborate. So the way of work has completely changed, through collaboration tools. And just having everybody on Office 365 in the cloud means that instead of having all of these stovepipe SharePoint servers everywhere, file servers everywhere, Exchange servers everywhere, everybody's in one environment. And as we start to kill some of those legacy areas and 100% migrate all of the files into our Office 365 environment, we naturally then have more access to that data too, and can start using all of those tools that are inherent in that system, and also just having a better idea of what we have. So just using modern tools sometimes just is huge. Not having data in stovepipes that doesn't need to be is huge.
And when it comes to the data side of that, when you think about the ecosystem that you're describing, what are some of the other partners and or technologies that have been essential to the work that you're doing, besides Trifacta and the work that we're doing together?
Game-changing technologies and tools. So, I mean, Kubernetes has been huge. And just application in general of Agile DevSecOps principles, and just the modern dev stack, the CI/CD pipeline has been game-changing. I mean, not just for, code quality, but, I mean, for speed of deployment. And Eileen's talked a few times about how long it takes for us to accredit things. We've been able to automate that for DevSecOps, which has been incredible. What else, Eileen?
I would say anytime you can do infrastructure as code, it gives you the speed and mission that you absolutely need. And
configuration as code.
And we began with open source, because we can give every air and space professional open source tools. I don't have to worry about licensing and scalability, because it's there. And I know that sounds very basic, but the culture hasn't always been pro open source. So being able to have Zeppelin or Zeppelin notebook or notebook with R and Python, we have these amazing individuals, air and space professionals coming into our department. They've grown up digital natives and data natives, and we have to give them the tools that they're comfortable with, that they've grown up with. And because we want to retain these amazing professionals. And so having the network that they need with the data and the tools that they need to support their mission is expected, and we need to support them in that. So other tools we've used, our data science community specifically has used a lot of Databricks capability, which has also, and so I would say that Databricks has been one of the commercial off-the-shelf products that we've also used, and that was a true ask from our data science community in our department. But I would like to say the tools that we have today may not be the tools that we have tomorrow. Just being able to have the conversation of being able to pivot from one capability to the next and not being stovepiped into legacy systems is also critical as we move forward. We have to stay up to date. So when Lauren talks about Office 365 and Teams, they are critical components moving forward, because today it may be those tools, but tomorrow it may be something else. And so having that continuous capability to bring in today's technologies today quickly, it is truly the game-changing capability that we need.
Yeah, and we're seeing that, also on our side, where the desire for people to be able to not just democratize this in a no-code way, the data preparation piece of things, but really sort of no code in your code, or no code and low code, making sure that people can leverage open source packages that are out there, call out to those packages, making sure they can generate code that then can be leveraged inside of notebooks. I think a lot of the work is, we always talk a lot about how we want to try to help people, move on to the higher order algorithmic work and the higher order analytics work, and not get bogged down in a lot of the data engineering work, the janitorial work with the data that ultimately ends up, eating up, 80+% of the budget and the time and the effort. And so, we're expanding our platform and our roadmap to really embrace a lot of the trends that you're just describing, and making it a lot easier for people to show up if they've got some skills and know how to write some Python or know how to write some SQL code, that they can do that. And if they want to then generate some of those things also as part of the data wrangling or data preparation process, they can do that too. So it's trying to embrace and extend a lot of these trends that you're describing. So I want to shift gears for a second. We're going to open it up to questions here in a minute. So if you've got questions, feel free to toss them into the chat and we'll get through as many of them as we can. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask at least one question about STEM. So I know, Eileen, this has been something that you're quite passionate about, and something that Air Force has helped to champion. And so I thought maybe you could just offer a perspective a little bit about the work you're doing in this area.
Well, I think that we're all doing work in this area. Lauren talked about Digital U. Amazing capability to really self-service, upskill or upskill our workforce using high-end quality online content. It's the way today's digital natives learn, and to have that capability, but we understand that different individuals learn different ways. So we've actually partnered with multiple organizations. AFID, Institute of Technology, we specifically now have an online graduate certificate program that any aerospace professional can reach out and actually take that as part of their studies. The Air Force Academy this year actually launched a data science major. That's going to be game changing to all of our missionaries, because those cadets will go into air and space forces and do amazing things in all areas. But it's really about building diversity of thought. So when I talk about STEM, it's really about making sure that we're really keeping up and pushing the envelope so that we're staying up to date. And I think it's pretty amazing that even today, I know that I feel honored to be the chief data officer, and I look and I have this trusted partner, and having, Lauren coming from the venture capital world, that diversity of thought in the STEM environment, I think is critical moving forward. We really need to drive insights and really drive down bias. That diversity of building great capabilities in our department and really pushing forward in diversity of thought is critical moving forward.
Absolutely, yeah. So let's go to the questions, Nate, in the last 10 minutes here.
We've got a lot of them, so we'll try to power through a couple before we close out here. Yes.
Good to see.
First of all, just one housekeeping item, because we got a couple questions on whether or not this will be recorded and posted, and the answer is yes. So if you've got folks that you want to share this with, which sounds like quite a few people do, that'll be available to download after this. Jumping into one question here, in terms of the other modernization efforts that the Air Force has going on, like Platform One, what is the relationship between Vault and Platform One or other modernization initiatives that are going on concurrently?
I can take a stab at that. I mean, the reality is we're working on under Lauren's leadership, a digital Department of the Air Force initiative, which is really converging all these great efforts into a true enterprise focus moving forward. So it's not just one thing, it's really about people have moved out very quickly and we're in a true convergence stage right now. Lauren, did you have something you wanted to add?
And I'll just say that, all of the geeks are finding each other naturally, and really trying to solve these problems together. So that's been pretty awesome to see. So even though, we have, you hear about some separate teams, you hear about some pretty fun branding, including Baby Yoda and the Millennium Falcon. But all of the guys are doing their best to collaborate across all the stovepipes and just really drive everything forward together.
And then one question here on the ATO process, and I know Eileen, you were able to drive through, Vault very quickly here. Are there any specific lessons learned there for other government folks in terms of getting to ATO quickly? And another question related to that was around, does infrastructure as code help with that process? And if so, how can you sort of leverage it?
I would say yes, that infrastructure as code absolutely helps it because it makes it reproducible very quickly. It's the same business processes over and over. And so you standardize it, you document it, and it helps move the process much quicker. And it actually helps us roll capabilities out faster too. So once it's deployed, it's a capability that you leverage over and over again. But the rapid ATO process is really, I think, foundational. And making sure, partnering with CN to the CIO shop to make sure that we're constantly looking at pen testing. How do we push it? How do we test it to make sure that it's truly sound and moving forward, and it's maintained at the level of excellence that you would expect is critical. So I will be honest, when people said rapid ATO, there were a lot of people that I volunteered, pick me, go first, because I knew, coming from the Intel community that used that type of capability, that it would be game changing. And so I'm passionate about rapid ATO. I truly believe it should be the norm. It should not be the exception. It should be the standard, but that's my personal opinion.
I think we just got the undersecretary to sign out a memo saying fast track ATO is the primary to use. So I think you just got your wish like this week. I'll just add that, all the policy stuff aside, it's not that hard to be security focused and innovative anymore. And, even, in the commercial world, it's really important too. People don't want hackers breaking into their stuff, stealing their private information. And, so it's the same problem in the DoD. The more that you have the right partners on your team, just making sure that, your code is secure, as well as meeting your customers' needs, knowing that your customers want it to also be secure, the better it is. And, for a long time, we just kind of thought about security after the fact and thought it was a checklist exercise, but, that was, not the best way to go about it. So we do a lot of tabletops and just have the cybersecurity teams built in so that by the time you're done building a system, it can go online.
And then we've got a number of other questions that we won't have time to get to, unfortunately, but luckily we can take a couple minutes to talk about how to stay engaged, how to take next steps. So one last question that'll transition us here is, as an Air Force employee, what do I need to know or do in order to start utilizing Trifacta? And so with that, I'll hand it over to Adam to talk a little bit about that.
Well, sure. I'll give you the general Trifacta answer, and then if Eileen and Lauren may have the more specific Air Force answer to that question. But obviously, you can reach out to us directly. We do have a free version of the product that's available on our website, so you can go and start using the product right away, just to get a feel for how it works. And certainly would love to have our public sector team speak to you directly if you want to reach out via the emails that are indicated here.
And Adam, I think that they're going to actually send out a link to for a point of contact to the team CDO office, because Trifacta is available today for Air Force users on the Vault platform. And so they can reach out to that number and actually not just learn more about the Vault, but how they can gain access to Trifacta in an approved Air Force environment.
And using their own mission data.
Exactly.
The key.
That's great. Fantastic.
True game changer.
All right.
And that link or that email address just got dropped in the chat for anyone within the Air Force that wants to reach out and get started. And then on the DCode side, obviously, feel free to reach out to me after this if you have questions. We work across startups, government, and industry partners to help them bring tech like Trifacta into their missions. So feel free to check out our website to learn a little bit more there, or email us at info@dcode.co, not .com. And so with that, thank you so much to Adam, Eileen, Lauren for joining us today. Really learned a lot myself, and I think from all the sort of attendee engagement, I think that's true across the board. So really appreciate all of you taking the time and all of the great work that each of you are doing to really make the Air Force modern in a way that it was not before you joined and started pushing these initiatives. So thanks again, everyone. And if you do need the recording, that'll be published. I think probably the easiest way to find it is going to be when it gets shared on LinkedIn, if you're following Trifacta and DCode there. And with that, have a great rest of your day.
Excellent. Thank you
Thanks,
for
guys.
hosting.
Great
Really
discussion.
appreciate it,
Thank
Nate.
you.
Yep, really appreciate it. Thank you.